So now we are ready. So just now we had a little bit of difficulty, but compared to the suffering in many countries, this is nothing. Particularly in India, the Holy Land where the Buddha Shakyamuni was first teaching, they have so many sufferings due to the virus. This is the hot time of the year there, and to be sick without good resources in the high temperature is a terrible way to be ill. So I would encourage you, if you feel like it, to bring thoughts about India into your practice and dedicate the merit, particularly for all the people there. So now we have the first question, which is a little similar to some we've had before. What is the origin, purpose, and benefits of doing a padmasambhava tantric practice? And how is this Guru Yoga related to Dzogchen teachings? The origin of suffering is the disregarding of the primordial openness and purity of the mind. When openness and appearance are split and kept apart, then suffering begins. Dzogchen, the great completion, shows the integrity, the connectedness, the non-separation of every aspect of our actuality. So that's a good indication that we shouldn't split the Dharma either. All aspects of the Buddhist teaching is helpful. Making Dzogchen high and special is not very helpful for our mind. The reason we do tantric practice is to connect us with the ground of our being through transforming limitations into pathways of freedom. The particular practices of padmasambhava we do are treasure teachings taught by Padmasambhava himself. The purpose of the practice is to open yourself and purify your ordinary sense of self so that you can merge together with Padmasambhava. So the view of Dzogchen would say, from the very beginning, the basis of your presence is primordial purity, but we exist in a state of impurity. This is not impure because we do some bad things. It's impure because we believe that we have a real existence, that the people we know have a real existence, that houses and trees all have a real existence. Because this belief in the separate, solid, real existence of phenomena is accepted by beings everywhere in samsara, it seems as natural as breathing. So that although we're trying to release ourselves from these deluding concepts and habit formations, because they are habitual and subtle, we often don't recognize them even as they're manifesting. And so when we make use of the practice of Padmasambhava, we have him as a manifest symbol of purity, and we make use of that purity to recognize our own purity by fusing together. That purity which you achieve through Tantra is called the purity which is free of impurities. That is to say, it has a subtle shading on it, a subtle shadow. So if you wash your hands, you know that they are clean. You know they are clean because you've washed them, but the reason you washed them was because they were dirty. So now my hands are clean, but they were dirty. Maybe they'll get dirty again. So the purity which is established by washing, by cleaning, by visualization and so on, stands in relation to impurity. And so then, having done this kind of practice, it's very important to go directly into Dzogchen and relax into the primordial purity, which has never been contaminated and which is not relative to anything else. The advantage of doing the tantric practice is it gives you access to mantras, which are very useful for protecting your mind in difficult situations. As we move in the world, there are many provocations which can easily stimulate old habits that we have. We can find ourselves in judgment on other people, feeling irritated by what they do. And that, of course, pulls us into dualistic conceptualization, the formulation of more concepts, and then we're just spinning around in samsara. So, although the structure of the practice is more dualistic than simple Dzogchen, as long as we are living in a world where we think we truly exist and the things around us truly exist, then we are immersed in deep dualism. And in that case, then the homeopathic dose of dualism that you have in the tantric practice is very useful for curing us of our fever and hallucinations. Okay, so the next question says, James said that the practice of chöd and the semdzins were disruptive practices. What does this mean? So if we look at this basic structure of the three root poisons, we have the first is the stupidity or the opacity or the mental dullness, which gives us a sense of reified entities. And from that, we have the two directions of desire for certain aspects of the fragmented field and aversion to other aspects of the fragmented field. These two movements of energy permeate all forms of human culture. Generally, desire links to sex and aversion links to death. So in the tantric practice, we enter into a merged union with the form of the meditation deity, so that subject and object merge together. This union of opposites brings us to a point of zero, which is emptiness. So we say, padmasambhava, you are wonderful, you are everything, and me, I'm nothing, I'm rubbish, I'm a bad person, I'm full of confusion. So we bring these two first of all, we increase the tension between these polarities, and then we bring them together to merge and dissolve into emptiness. So that's eros, or the erotic or union. In terms of killing and death, we have the desire to kill off all limitations. So, for example, in the chöd practice, we imagine that the site of our ego, which is our own body, can be destroyed. Imagine that our awareness leaves our body and enters into the form of Vajrayogini, who then cuts off the top of the head of our dead corpse and chops our body up, and it's then fed to various kinds of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas and demons. And because the body is vanished, it's consumed, there's no return. Now your truth is Vajrayogini, but on a relative level, you might appear to other people in your usual form. So that is a way of disrupting the continuity that our embodied being is the basis of I, me, myself. In the series of practices called the semdzins, or apprehending the mind, involve the intensification of energetic experience, so that there is a fundamental contradiction of your usual sense of self. That is to say, we create so much energy that we cannot hang on to our sense of who we are. It's a kind of Dionysian orgiastic experience, through which you can see that your familiar body is in fact a a harmonization of rhythms. So our body likes a certain bandwidth of temperatures, not too hot, not too cold. If we eat too much, we don't feel well. If we're very hungry, we don't feel well. If we get no exercise, we don't feel so well. If we get too exhausted physically, we also don't feel too well. So our body as an energetic system niched inside the systemic field where there are many systems operating has to be constantly managed. Of course, this maintenance is quite exhausting because I want to believe that I'm me. I'm just me. But if the factors around me are not conducive to my happiness and ease of being me, then I see that the meanness of me is relative. It is part of a communication with the environment. And if you think of how much effort people put into maintaining some ambient temperature, some easy temperature, they have air conditioning in the hot summer and heaters for the cold winter. This desire to maintain the systemic integrity of our embodied being leads us to constantly be adopting certain factors in the environment and rejecting others. So when we do a disruptive practice like the semdzins, we can go beyond our usual comfort zone. And that allows us to see the purely conventional nature of this point of reference. We are energy. In the more access we have to a wide range of vibrations, the more we are able to respond to diverse situations in the world. Now in Western European countries, people seem to feel overwhelmed by very little. In the realm of psychotherapy, people are talking a lot about post-traumatic stress disorder. But what is trauma? It makes me feel not like myself. So then we are like with the story of the princess and the pea. The more sensitive you become, the more easily you're traumatized. So to disrupt this fine tuning of myself is very helpful for Dharma practice, because the familiar, the usual, the reassuring is like a carapace, it's like a shell around us. Creatures who live in a shell are only safe while they're in the shell. If they come out of the shell, then the birds can catch them and eat them very quickly. So disruptive practices are shell breakers. The shell makes you feel safe, but at the cost of being very limited. So by intentionally freeing yourself from the shell and directly experience your presence as energetic, then we have the possibility of being more resilient and pliable and responsive. Okay, so then we have a question: how to see through the false sense of self, which is so embedded? And linked with this is, can we get a taste of freedom without doing years of retreat? The quickest way to understand the false nature of your sense of self is to ask your friends what they honestly think of you. They will give you some useful feedback. You are not who you think you are, but also you are not who they think you are. You are a site of potential which is open to multiple readings or identifications. So my falsity is when I over solidify, over define my sense of who I am. This has various levels. We might have a misperception about our qualities, thinking we are more generous than we are, for example. If you want to recognize that, then you need to observe other people. When you accurately see how other people are. It gives you a relative frame of reference for thinking where you are in that hierarchy. Are you more generous or less generous than they are? But of course, because our qualities manifest in dependent origination, they are not stable. And so whenever we make a claim to be this kind of person or to be good at doing that particular activity, this construct is not going to be true all the time. So we can be false in our identifications of how we are as manifestation. More profoundly, or as a deeper cause of difficulty for us, is the falsity of believing that we truly exist. So this we can find in the meditation practice. When you relax, if you do the Guru Yoga of the white and then you relax and you open, and then perhaps you look to see who is the experiencer, what is the mind like, or how is my mind? Although we have some sense of the ungraspability of our presence, of our being here-ness, there is often a hazy residual somethingness which seems to be me. It might be a sort of hazy sensation in what you take to be your head. It could be a sense of the kind of liveliness or aliveness of your physical presence, or it could be like the nyams, the meditation experiences, where perhaps there is just nothing at all, and yet the absence of thought somehow is something that you are conscious of, and this is what's happening for me. Or you have an experience of clarity and you are conscious of it as clarity. Even if you are not running a story, a narrative about it, or even thinking about it very much, there is a subtle separation between the experience and the experiencer. This is happening to me. And that sense of to me is it's difficult to catch it, but it's like an anchor that stops you going free. The basic falseness is fundamental ignorance. It's fundamental not because it's always there, but because it's the basis of everything which arises in samsara. As some of us have looked on different occasions, as soon as the relaxed openness of awareness is not attended to, or we are unaware of it, you have the presence of something. This something is just this slight tilt away from integrity. There is no splitting or separation, and so there is no true subsequent fragmentation. And yet somethingness seems to continue as a vibration. As we know, when we look, our thoughts arise and vanish, sensations arise and vanish, memories and so on, they appear and disappear. So the basic falseness is the seeming continuity of our sense of self. This is called the rangyud, the kind of self thread which seems to be there, linking every moment of our life as my life. So there is something, and there is something because I know there is something. Something is happening for me. So where I'm sitting now, there was a rumbling sound I heard, and I identify, oh, that's a plane in the sky. As soon as I know it's a plane in the sky, I know that I am the one that knows it's a plane in the sky. So this self-reflexive move, which happens automatically, is constantly reassuring us of our ongoing importance as the central figure in our life's drama. So on an outer level, if you're talking with friends or at work, we try to see how language creates a sense of importance and validity to the behaviors which are being described. A story has continuity. So this continuity gives us, even when it's happening on a crude outer level, it's arising from this subtle sense of I'm always here. So this is the falseness of turning the great world around ourselves. What we have is the view from here. So in the world, there are many events of war, disease, selfishness, exploitation, and we react to these things. We hear a bit of information and we have an opinion. The outer semantic content of the opinion is not the main problem for meditators. The issue for us is the way in which we inhabit this opinion as me giving voice to what I know to be true. We know people have different opinions. We could also try adopting another opinion. If we adopted maybe a very right-wing opinion or a communist opinion, a Roman Catholic opinion or Buddhist opinion, we see these are modes of interpretation. I need a story. The truth of the story is not my main concern. My concern is to have a story. The continuity of the story is the continuity of my sense of self. You can see the way conflicts arise in the world, and a lot of killing occurs because of the energy of the self. This very powerful energy gets linked onto some ideas. So the falsity of that we inhabit is not just the falsity of our existence, but how we perceive other people's existence. So a few days ago in Kabul, in Afghanistan, outside a school where most of the girls were from the Hazara community, at the time when the girls were coming out of the school, a bomb went off, followed by further bombs. Over 50 girls were killed. Why would anybody do such a thing? When you follow the logic of that particular social community, the Hazara people are a minority, a denigrated minority in the middle valleys of Afghanistan. They belong to the Shia grouping in Islam, and this is a provocation for the dominant Sunni population. They are girls, and giving girls education makes them spoiled for the purpose of being wives and mothers. So what I've just described is a whole series of little storylines about the status of women or ethnic minorities or religious belief. When we join these concepts together, we can arrive at what seems to be a propositional truth. If these people didn't send their girls to school, we would not have to kill them. These people are acting against our tradition and they are wrong. We are good. No, this kind of belief system may sound mad, but if we observe it, it gives the continuity of the sense of self for the person who believes it. So this perhaps lets us see the sustaining nourishment of the basic falseness of the self. There is a formulation of identity, and as a formulation, it's something which is brought together. It's not intrinsically valid, but when it's believed in, the power of that belief gives it a false integrity. The integrity, of course it's true, of course it's true. So that is the basis for the wars that exist all over the world, the lying and cheating of politics, the exploitation of workers in factories and in mines and so on. The shell of the ego self is made of knowledge. And inside this shell, I can, I can feel safe. So if you behave in a way that might make a hole in my shell, I will want to destroy you. So my shell might be composed of white supremacy, male supremacy, capitalist supremacy, or the rights to revenge and reparation if I belong to a minority that has been exploited. It's very important that I get justice. So for meditators, we are not so concerned with the structure of the world because it's all arising from ignorance. It is illusion which is confusing and bewildering. But if I believe that I am Scottish and the Scottish have been exploited by the English, then in order for me to have dignity, I have to fight for Scottish independence. This is a noble cause. It is worth sacrificing time, energy, money, and so on. So in that way, we see the dynamic of the human experience in samsara. So if you look at your own mind and you see how many opinions you have, how many cultural beliefs you have, family beliefs, and so on, then you can see that to get to basic falseness, the underlying belief in the true existence of phenomena, is difficult because it's so covered by all these other beliefs that we disturb us and we spend our time defending. So the second part of the question was, can we get a taste of freedom without doing years in retreat? If what is required is a deep taste, although not a profound awakening, then the best way is to get it through nature. For example, when the sky is clear, you can sit in a relaxed way and let your gaze dissolve into the sky with the sun behind you. If you just have a slow, easy, relaxed breathing, the emptiness of the sky will show you the emptiness of your mind. This is a very useful practice for modern people because we are so used to being energetic and active and making things happen. What can I do in order to get this experience? So in this practice, all you do is you sit and you open your eyes and you allow the sky to come to you so that you can become passive receptive. Now with mobile phones and apps, people are very quick to make things happen. The kind of patience that you had to have in Tibet if you had to travel maybe 50 days to get to visit some friends, now you can contact them on Zoom instantly. So we are used to energy rising and going out into the world. And of course, if there is a doing, it enforces the subtle sense, I am the doer. If you live near the sea, it's also helpful to look at the movement of the waves. Waves don't stop, they just keep coming and coming and coming. They're there and gone, there and gone. Appearance, ungraspable. And then when you have a felt sense of that, you can turn and look at people walking on the beach or birds flying in the sky. And you might just catch a moment of, oh, appearing and vanishing. Some shape and color is moving in the sky. Oh, it's a seagull. Now you have the concept, the bird is gone, but you hang on to the concept. So you want to keep inside you the felt sense of the waves coming and going, coming and going. There's nothing much to pin a concept on. So with that, you can have some confidence that you can function in the world with a quiet mind, a silent mind. The more quiet your mind is, the less you need to make commentary on what's going on. And the less commentary you give, the more of the world you receive. Okay, so this is a question similar to before. If I experience a sense of presence in my heart area, is this related to materiality and therefore not to be given importance? Or is it related to the intrinsic sense of awareness? Awareness has no self-content. So like with a familiar image of the mirror has nothing of itself inside it. So sensations in the body, in the heart, in the knees, in the head, this is a movement of energy, which is in the field of instant presence. What is it? What does it mean? We don't need to know. Something. And if we keep it just as something, we can get close to the fact it's already gone. So perhaps it was some nothing. So this is our experience. The world is full of diverse some nothings. When you become more aware of how busy your mind is, how much interpretation and commentary you provide, and you start to see the function of this, which is consolidation, allowing you to give opinions and conclusions about facts, things that happened. Then you are observing the process of the maintenance of your own falsity. Whatever is occurring doesn't need your story. So if you are prone to having a lot of sensation in your meditation, then it's very useful to do some vipassana body scans, where you stabilize your focus of attention by concentrating on the breath at the nostrils. Then take that focused attention to the top of your head and gradually scan down through your body. And then when you get right down to your feet, you come back up again through the body, very slowly, just noting whatever is there. The more you do that, the more you can see that the continuity of the experience from one moment to the next is conceptual. Concepts are receptacles. So if you're scanning through your body and you feel an itch, for example, the term itch, which is a word, a sign, and it also has a concept mixed with it, can hold many different kinds of experience in the body. And the more you can apprehend, take hold of what is occurring, this gathering in gives it a density which seems to allow it to be recognized again in the future. So in this, you can see the beginning of the three times, past, present, and future. The actual arising, whatever is, excuse me, in the moment here, is instantly gone. But as you scan through the body, and you have the memory, oh, last time my left shoulder was itchy, you find yourself checking, oh, is the itch still there? Oh, and will it be there when I come back up again? In this interweaving between the past, the relative present, and the future is again part of the how we weave the continuity of the sense of self. The continuity is concept-based. It is relying on the application of signs. The somethingness of a something relies on its identification of what kind of a something it is. So in the Bible, it says, in the beginning was the Word. That's the same for us. As soon as the ungraspable appearance is grasped seemingly by a word, you have the beginning. You want to get the appearance, but you can't. But as a substitute, as a kind of compensation, you get the concept of the something instead. In this interplay of concepts and interpretive signs allows us to enter into the human dimension of language in which we endlessly talk about something. So you can, if you watch television news or listen to people talking, you can see how the sequence of concepts creates pictures. This is the basis of novels, poetry, drama, films. We, as ego selves, are stories. We, as awareness, are silent freshness and brightness. The world doesn't need our stories. So we say Dzogpa Chempo, the great completion, the always already perfect. There is no lack. So if there is no lack, there is no need for our story. The function of the story is to maintain the ego. Now, in our busy world, where most of our time is caught up in communication, we have to find the way to hear the silence in the sound. Just as when we read the Heart Sutra and it says form is emptiness, emptiness is not other than form. Similarly, we have a sound is silence, silence is not other than sound. If you set them up as polarities, as a binary opposition, then you will find that sound is always stealing your silence, because either there is silence or there is sound. But in Dharma, we want to see the non-contradiction or the unification or the non-division between all the polarities. Sound as simply a note is gone. Music is a continuity of sounds to have rhythm and melody and so on. The sound is movement, and that movement is a vibration, and each moment of the vibration is just this, just this, just this. Can you catch sound? We can have concepts about sound. You can study music, you can know how to read the musical notation, and so you can write down a musical account of whatever sounds you hear, what key it's in, and so on. But what do you catch? Is a sound in the is a sound ever in C major? You learn about C major when you're in school. This is a category, a way of conceptualizing the account of what you hear. But we don't find such a system in Chinese music or Indian music. These are conventional categories. We apply the category onto the emergent experience. So as with the Vipassana, try to just relax and not apply the interpretation. When you stop telling sound what it is, it will show you its silence. So that is about our time for today. We have another meeting in 2 weeks' time. So hopefully there's something useful this evening. And thank you to our translators, and thank you for your attention. So, good evening.
Thank you.
Bye bye bye.
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 Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Next time.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, James. Obrigada, Milton.
Ciao a tutti.
Thank you.